when Mosadi Seboko accused the president, Dr. Masisi, of interference in judicial affairs in October 2022, she received a somewhat lukewarm response, with the office of the president dismissing her concerns. Now, in the face of growing apprehension over the interference of the country's highest office on the judiciary, 3 cases have been brought before the High Court revolving around the President, the Chief Justice, the Law Society of Botswana, the Attorney General, and judges of the High Court. It is an all-out war in the judiciary, and it seems a ceasefire is nowhere near anybody's reach. Is the nation facing a constitutional crisis, or this is just a normal way for judges to resolve their differences? This is a question that needs a lot of answers.
When we look at what's happening, it tends to mar Botswana. We've always wanted Botswana to be an exemplar in terms of democracy, in terms of judiciary to other countries. And this is becoming under pressure, it's becoming under threat from what we have noted, but it's not only coming under threat from the recent activities that we've noted, but for us as a federation, it's been under threat for some time because of the issue of separation of powers.
The judiciary is in a crisis because it is not able to rise above the whole thing of the Masisi feud. And when you look at the whole thing, the biggest problem about the judiciary is that every other week there's a case that involves Botswana government against Khama, the DIS against Khama, Sorenso against Khama. And this puts a lot of pressure on the judiciary. And I doubt by now there's a single judge in the entire judiciary who has not had a case, at least on Ian Khama. And that naturally puts a lot of crisis, which is why now, at the height of the whole thing, is this fight between Justice Ketlogetsu and the Chief Justice. Because Ketlogetsu, in one of his papers, had said that the Chief Justice wanted to influence him one way or the other. And he made a whole lot of allegations, including the fact that Chief Justice had at one point said that judges from the north or the central part of the country should not be involved on the Khama issues.
We have never had such a situation in Botswana. It's for the first time. And it's not to me, it's more than a crisis. To say it's a crisis is an understatement. First, there was an allegation against His Excellency the President by Kgosi Seboko that he had openly said to her that he will influence the outcome of a case. It's a very grave allegation, which in my view, the President, and remember, it's not said by an ordinary person, said by Kgosi Yabaliti, I think a dignified woman occupying a position of authority, and I think she cannot just wake up and say it. The President of the Republic should have come out and say whether that is true or he was misunderstood.
You don't get anyone more credible than Kgosi Seboko. Again, whether you like her or not. And then she stands up and said she had been called for a meeting with President Masisi. And then Masadi Seboko goes on, and then you look at the response, you read the response from the office of the president. You can see these are the people who are out of their depth. They don't even know how to respond to what insinuations Kgosi Masadi made.
This thing, the implication is because it affects cohesion, it affects our national pride, it affects national unity, and it also affects Botswana being celebrated as an example across Africa and indeed beyond Africa.
A judge of the High Court says the Chief Justice, who is the head of the judiciary, is uttering tribal sentiments, but also has said something to the effect that that particular judge, Judge Kipalitswe, I beg your pardon, should have judged the case in a certain way. And it's alleged that that was said by the Chief Justice. It's quite grave, very heavy.
For the judiciary to get out of this whole thing is for the president to be involved. And now he's sucked into the whole thing. He's mentioned as one of either the respondents or the litigants in the whole thing. So it's a sad situation. And when you look at the response by the Chief Justice towards allegations by Ketlogetso, for example, his first instance has been, I think, to go to court, to the same institution that we are complaining about. And then you listen to the arguments that have been circulating. I think Ketlogetso's lawyers have now gone on to say the acting Chief Justice should not even be the one presiding over the case. He should recuse himself, because one way or the other, by occupying that case, even on acting capacity, he too is sucked into the whole thing. So it's a whole mess, actually.
The President and the Chief Justice have denied many of the allegations raised by Judge Ketlogetso. Surely, the implications and the price for losing public and investor confidence are huge, and the country cannot afford such.
There is nothing that is disheartening as public losing trust in the judicial system. Because remember there was issue of forum shopping in the past. And in that, it eroded the integrity of the system to say, oh, so there are judges who are viewed to be favoring such people. Will that judge give us a fair trial? And to investors, if you look at it, they want to come to countries that there is rule of law, where everything is done per the law. And if you have judges who are susceptible to corruption or to be impartial, a lot of people can hold back.
And you know what the implication of that is that people would resort to using their own means to get what they think is theirs, because they think that they cannot get it through the right processes of going to court. We will see crimes now going up because people think that there's no need for me to go to court. If anything, let me solve this for myself.
When we look at investors, when investors come to a country, there are certain things they look at. They look at governance. They look at the interest of someone in terms of if there is a problem, can they say the country is democratically stable? They look at issue about corruption. They look at issues telling what they have to do with the overall peaceful nature, because they have the interest to protect.
It means that you can be framed up. I can be framed up by somebody influential in society, then go to court. That's where we seek justice. And when we arrive at court, a judge is told that judge it in this way. This means that fairness and where we are supposed to go to seek for refuge for fairness, now there is no tree for us to rush to. There's no shadow where we are going to be seated under to seek for justice. That is what it means to an ordinary Botswana. And that's why ordinary Botswana should be worried.
The loss of public aid will go deeper, and there will be more implications for the country, not just the judiciary now, because people come here to invest their money and they rely on independence of the judiciary. If they cannot count on the judiciary that is detached from government, if there is a feeling that whatever opinions the judiciary makes, there's a lot of match fixing and coordination behind the scenes between the judges and the government in the form of cabinet, you're not going to get investors coming.
As BFTU, one thing we have suggested solutions in our submissions. And we had laid down to the commissioners what we believe would be important and key in addressing some of these challenges. And by so doing, also attract the investor rental as Botswana, because as much as we agree, and I take it we are in unison in agreeing where we need investors for the growth of Botswana, but in luring those investors, we will have to get our house in order.
Investors cannot come to a country where there is a collapse of the judicial system. Why? Because they know that investors are bound to have litigations. Whether an employee is litigating against a company, or it is the shareholders themselves litigating against each other, you always have those kind of litigations. So what does this mean? Maybe somebody who litigates against an investor is somebody who is in influential position, maybe in government. Then that person, because now the judiciary is captured, is under the executive, it would then mean that they will always lose cases, not on merit, not on the basis of the law, but on the basis of influence.
We are bound to see more white-collar criminals, more especially, because those are the ones that actually impoverish the country, because they know that if you have money, the judicial system will listen to you differently from if you don't have money. And of course, it encourages people to say, let me steal more and have money so that I'm untouchable.
The rule of law is a very important thing. It's not a small thing that you make as an empty slogan that you just chant and you think is going to happen. No, it applies to how you behave as a government. It means that when judgments are made, they have to be respected, they have to be implemented, they have to be enforced by the government, even if they don't like those judgments. And when you look at what has been happening and playing out, the DCEC, for example, where judgments were made during Katolo's saga there, but never enforced, literally thrown away by what people are supposed to be enforcing them. And here I'm talking about the law enforcement people. Then you have a big problem.
The executive is in control of the JSC, because you only have one person who is nominated from people by Longori, it's not the executive. And this casts doubt into appointment of the judges is it done from a position where it can give people confidence for a separation of powers between the executive and the judiciary.
This thing, my brother, I think it has dented the judiciary. I was happy to hear from the president of the Court of Appeal, Mematau, saying it herself and appealing to the people. But you don't just go and appeal to the people. Credibility is aimed. So she shouldn't go and shout and appeal for credibility. What she should do is to ensure that these things are dealt with and they are not there in the eyes of the people.
Looking at the recent public spat between DIS and DCEC, one wonders if there is any immediate remedy to bring about stability in the judiciary. Can the president intervene and douse off the fires? Does the Constitution allow him to intervene, and how will his intervention be framed or molded?
The president, ultimately, the buck stops with him. He cannot bury his head in the sand and hope that by the time he gets it out, the rotten judiciary would have gone away. It will not go away. Up to now, he has not. And we can see why. Is it because he's relying on the fact that Chief Justice is still at court to sort out the mess around his name? But that's not the issue. I think the issue is much bigger than the Chief Justice. The issue is that there's a lot of coordination between government and the judiciary behind the scenes.
We have now come to a point where Judge A is with Judge So and so. We have come to a point where there is going to be forum shopping, where people will shop for judges that they think they are not executive minded, and then start to shop for judges. That is very bad. So in my view, I think what needs to be done is a commission of inquiry. It's a judicial commission of inquiry to try and establish all these things, whether they really do exist, and appropriate action then taken in order to address the whole thing. When the head of the DCEC, Raymond Katulo, his office was sealed and by the DIS. Not too far from that, we had the suspension of the head of police, the police commissioner, and it was out of the fracas still between the police and the DIS. These are three important agents that are supposed to ensure that the security of the country is intact, and they're supposed to be working together. That was the moment that we needed the voice of the president. The president to say, we see this kind of a situation, and this is something that we do not want to repeat itself. But still, the voice of the president on that crisis was still absent. It is still absent. We expected that maybe he will seize the opportunity the State of the Nation address, but still we couldn't hear anything from his office.
The DCEC DIS issue was a very sad matter. I'll tell you why. Here are the two institutions tasked with fighting especially corruption and ensuring the security of the nation. Now they are busy fighting themselves. And when you ask, you find that there is a lot of corruption between or amongst themselves going on. That was a big opportunity missed by the president to sort out the whole thing. He should have cleaned the whole thing then. Instead, he picked sides.
What needs to be done is, let's look at let our laws as a country reflect what we want to be and what kind of justice we want to impart. One system. We don't need the traditional, because you need to take those values from the customary law into our common law. You have to modernize them and bring them together. If you look at countries like the successful countries in Middle East, there's nothing like this law and there's that law. They know that we are Muslims, and our judicial system knows that we are Muslims. And therefore, our laws in Botswana should be saying we are Botswana, and our laws are Botswana laws in a modern way, such that we are able to carry our value system into our common law. Unlike where we have the traditional law running with the values and trying to tell people this is right and wrong, and then we have this that also focuses on some elitist system that does not even represent or reflect on the values of Botswana or of us as a country. That value system would define how even the president reacts or acts in his capacity. It will also define how the JSC acts in making recommendations, because it would have our values and where we are. It would identify with us as Botswana.
Parliament and civil society should have a bigger stake in nominating batho ba eleng gore da in the Judicial Service Commission. That way, tla dira gore the Judicial Service Commission nne something se le gore Botswana ba dumela gore e khona go appointa batho ba eleng gore they have the right integrity, e leng gore it's suitable to become a judge mo lehatsheng la Botswana. Secondly, the judge presidents and the judges, all of them should be appointed by the Judicial Service Commission. E le yone recommenda lanta utona gore appointe boma.
Because it boils down to issue of appointment of judges. You remember this crisis was long coming. The complaint started with the manner in which some judges were appointed over others without considering seniority, where somebody who is a junior judge is picked way back the queue and put in front of others or to lead others that are more senior and experienced than him or her. It started there. So probably when you say constitutional amendment, maybe it's something that has come at the right time, where now people would start to debate, are there no loopholes in the process of the appointment of judges.
The only hope is that one day this moment will pass and the courts will once again present hope for all and public confidence will be restored. As the sunrise and sunset remain in place, things will hopefully return to normal. Pamepit Gaborone.